I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. Welcome to
the Black Excellence and Abundance Channel. Gerald Massey was an author from the late 1800s and early 1900s, and he authored several books, including on ancient Egypt, and his most famous was The Light of the World, which had 6 volumes. And in his studies, Massey believed that the Western civilization and religions had Egyptian roots and had evolved out of Africa, physically, spiritually, culturally, and philosophically.
Although debates continue, historical research has proven that the Egyptian ideas and belief systems were adopted by European philosophers and that Greece and Roman priests learned from the Egyptian counterparts. For example, Greeks and Romans eagerly traveled to Egypt, especially to learn Egyptian sciences and esoteric philosophies. In his book, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Anthony Browder, Browder acknowledges how the Greeks went about attaining the knowledge from Africa. The Greeks came to Africa as students to sit at the feet of their masters and to discover what Africans already knew. Additionally, in the book Egyptian Revival by James Stephen Curl states, the Greeks were aware of the antiquity of the Egyptian civilization and were impressed by its religion, buildings, and customs. Even more important, however, was the awe with which Egypt was regarded. For it was seen as the storehouse of all ancient wisdom. In understanding that Egypt had this knowledge, the Greeks befriended the Egyptians as a means to gain entry. The great Dr. Yosef ben Yaakov refers to the Egyptian mystery systems as a study of esoteric philosophy, meaning that it was intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest, so its understanding was not for everyone. Let me repeat that. Egypt's understanding of specialized knowledge was not for everyone. Ultimately, the Greeks and Romans subdued Egypt through military means, thus obtaining control over the land and its people. Author of Stolen Legacy, George James details the Greeks' invasion tactics. Egypt was supreme in the leadership of seeking admission into her mysteries or wisdom system. The immigration of Greeks to Egypt for the purpose of their education began as a result of the Persian invasion of 525 BC and continued until the Greeks gained possession of the land and access to the royal library through the conquest of Egypt under the so-called Alexander the Great. The city now called Alexandria was converted into a Greek city, a center of research and the capital of the newly created Greek Empire under the new rule of Ptolemies. Dr. Ben confirms this and other methods used by Greek invaders in this following passage. Aristotle, for example, not only received his education in Egypt, he confiscated entire libraries of the works belonging to the Africans of Egypt mystery systems when he entered Egypt with the so-called Alexander the Great conqueror in 332 BCE. Aristotle even went to the extent of placing his name on the works he confiscated, most of which he claimed authorship, especially those which he kept for his private collection. In today's modern terms, we'd call that stealing and plagiarism. These previously stated quotes paint a clear picture as to how Egypt was subdued by European empires with the use of military forces. As a result, Greeks and Romans rose to the seat of power, which therefore explains their need to claim ownership of all things Egyptian, even till this very day.
The outstanding scholar Sheikh Anta Diop illustrates in his book Civilization or Barbarism how the Greeks attained the ancient wisdoms of Egypt. The Egyptian priests themselves had the habit of reminding the Greek scholars that it was in Egypt that they had learned the sciences that made them famous in their own country. Greek mythology, African Egyptian reality.
It is all these facts that Western ideologists either innocently or cynically falsify today when they dogmatically decree that Greece is the mother of civilization. That is an outright lie. Therefore, it is evident that the Greek philosophers learned concepts from the ancient Egyptians to launch their own doctrines. Also, Labib Habachi notes in the Obelisk of Egypt how Greeks learned from Egyptian priests, announcing Herodotus drew much of his information from its priests. The scientist Pythagoras, 6th century BC, had visited Heliopolis and profited from the wisdom of that city.
And just as a side note, there were skyscrapers in Africa thousands of years ago. So the skyscrapers that we see today, they are not new. Different designs, but they've been around for thousands of years in Africa, in Egypt, in different parts of the continent.
In the Greek impression of Egypt, reported by Plato, 429 to 347 BC, he states, "We Greeks are in reality children compared with these people with traditions 10 times older." Based on the information provided, it is clear that the Europeans recognized their infancy as students. Examining their prior knowledge, said Shiak Antadiel, also before the translation into Greek of Egyptian scientific works, the Greeks knew almost nothing about astronomy and theoretically and applied all sciences in general, not even the exact duration of year. In this regard, the longevity of Egypt's antiquity alone outlasts Europe's from any perspective. However, the Greek and Roman invasions in Egypt were prompted in attempts to suppress these historical facts, especially with the heightened interest due to the new discoveries.
We would also like to point out that the astrological signs, the zodiac signs, all came from Africa, although they have different names. And as we know, Egypt is not even the actual name given by the Africans. Egypt is a Greek word. The name of the land is actually Kemet.
From 332 BC, following the overthrow of the Persian monarchy by Alexander III the Great, Macedonian Greeks known as the Ptolemies ruled Egypt, and Alexandria became the most important center of Greek culture.
The following is an excerpt from the book Stolen Legacy by George James. The term Greek philosophy to begin with is a misnomer, for there is no such philosophy in existence. The ancient Egyptians had developed a very complex and religious system called the Mysteries, which was also the first system of salvation. The Egyptian mystery system was also a secret order, and membership was gained by initiation and a pledge to secrecy. The teachings were graded and delivered orally to the neophyte, and under these circumstances of secrecy, the Egyptians developed secret systems of writings and teachings and forbid their initiates from writing what they had learned. After nearly 5,000 years of prohibition against the Greeks, they were permitted to enter Egypt for the purpose of their education. First, through the Persian invasion, and secondly, through the invasion of Alexander the Great, or as I like to say, the so-called Great. From the 6th century BC, therefore, to the death of Aristotle in 322 BC, the Greeks made the best of their chance to learn all they could about the Egyptian culture. Most students received instructions directly from the Egyptian priests, but after the invasion by Alexander, the royal temples and libraries were plumaged and pillaged, and Aristotle's school converted the Library of Alexander into a research center. There's no wonder, then, that the production of the unusually large number of books ascribed to Aristotle has proven a physical impossibility for any single man within a lifetime. The history of Aristotle's life has done him far more harm than good, since it carefully avoids any statements relating to his visit to Egypt, either on his own account or in the company of Alexander the Great. The following are pictures of ancient Greek art, coins, and sculptures. Now, this is Greek art, not African. For more information on the subject, we suggest that you read this book as well as the others mentioned in the video. And the Egyptians that influenced the Greeks, they were black Africans. Make no mistake about it, because there are people who will try to tell you that the Northern Africans were not a black people, but that is not true. All of Africa was dark black people, so-called black people. The Black Excellence and Abundance channel, where black history is every day.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember, thou art